Goodness. Hi, how's it going? This is resident of Collinwood for YouTube, resident _of Collinwood for BitChute, and I'm here to do a review of the House of Dark Shadows movie. This is my revisited review. This was a requested review by Mark at _Barnabas. Shout out to him. So, are there differences between the House of Dark Shadows movie and the Dark Shadow series? Yes, and some of it's in the character. A lot of that is in the characters in the film in some ways. And they got what they did first of all is they got pretty much every cast member of Dark Shadows of the series and brought them to the film. Now, again, were they playing their exact character? Not exactly, but they were playing the sort of the title of the character. They were playing, for example, John Carlin playing Willie Loomis, Catherine Lee Scott playing Maggie Evans, Joan Bennett playing Elizabeth Collins' daughter, Jonathan Frid starring in this movie as Barnabas Collins, obviously. Don Briscoe as Tim Shaw. You had Nancy Barrett as Carolyn Collins' daughter. It's a who's who of who's in this movie. David Thayer as Elliot T. Stokes, Grayson Hall as Dr. Julia Hoffman. So they got a lot of the cast to come in to do this movie, which I love. House of Dark Shadows isn't filmed at the Seaview Terrace. This isn't filmed on the set. They actually filmed this on location at the Seaview Terrace. Or, sorry, not the Seaview Terrace. God. At the Lyndhurst Estate. I apologize. I already messed up again. But it's okay. I corrected myself. So this is film. My wife's smiling at me. This is what it is when you don't feel good. So they filmed this at the Lyndhurst Estate on location. This isn't filmed at a set, so there is that. Now, this movie starts off with, Catherine Lee Scott's character Maggie Evans looking for David Hennessy's character, David Collins. And if you're familiar with the series, you know that's an all too familiar trend with the governesses of Collinwood. They're always looking for David. They're always looking for him to get him in line. So they take that trend that was set in the series and they bring it to the big screen. Now, is that the main focus of this story? Is the main focus David? In a sense, no, but he's a part of it in ways. He now get into that. Where he's somewhat a part of it. Because it's centered around the family of the Collinwood, of Collinsport, the Collins family. That's the same narrative that was in the series. It's set around the Collins family. Obviously, Lewis Edmonds is in this. I don't know if I mentioned Lewis Edmonds. If I didn't, Lewis Edmonds does play Roger Collins in this. Now, when you meet Maggie Evans and she's looking for David, is there a difference between Maggie Evans in the movie and Maggie Evans in the series? Here's what I'll say to that. Yes, because to me, you don't meet Sam Evans in this movie. I think they're more banking on, with Maggie here, the familiarity of Maggie Evans from the series. That Maggie Evans became the governess after Vicky, left, after Victoria Winters left. Because Maggie Evans was not the original governess in the series. Victoria Winters was, who was played by Alexander Isles. Now, Maggie Evans in the series was a waitress at the cafe that was that was sort of inside the hotel, and she was sort of anti-Collins, sort of like her dad, because she realized, the Collins have a connection with her father in some way. She just wasn't exactly sure how. Now, in the movie, you aren't told that. You're just, this is Maggie Evans, and they're going to go off they're going to take a storyline that they use in the series. They're going to change it to a degree, and I'll get into the changes here in a bit. So as she's looking for David, she comes upon handyman Willie Loomis, who's played by John Carlin. And that's an interesting little fact, too, that if you have Tubi, there's a description in the series for episode 210. It says, Handyman Willie Loomis. Well, here's the thing. In the series, he wasn't the handyman. That's sort of a false narrative that they paint in the series in the description. And whoever runs Tubi needs to change that. Really, what it should say is conman / thief Willie Loomis looks for, the Collins family jewels, and he opens up the coffin of Barnabas Collins. Because Willie Loomis, this didn't happen in the Collinsport by himself in the series. He was brought in by Jason McGuire. And if it weren't for Jason McGuire, you would have never met Willie Loomis. Now, in the movie, there is no Jason McGuire. Willie Loomis is the handyman, and his employer is none other than Roger Collins, who's played by Louis Edmonds. So, Willie does not like his employer. And he sort of looks at them, oh, they're rich, they look down upon me. Now, that is a characteristic taken from the character of Willie Loomis in the series, where everybody was sort of looking down upon him. That is a bit of a characteristic that is taken from the series. But the differences is more, yes, Willie is the caretaker in the movie. Willie is sort of Matthew Morgan plus Ben Stokes with his own little attitude. That's more my comparison, in my opinion of it. Now, he reads the note to Maggie, and here's where you meet Roger. I love Roger's introduction in this movie. He comes in the horse's stable when they're standing there talking, and he yells Loomis. And there's a bit of a confrontation between the two, which I love. The chemistry, obviously, is amazing in this movie with the cast. And why shouldn't it be? They've worked together for how many years in the television series? Their chemistry is just really, really great. Dan Curtis directing this movie, Sam Hall writing this movie. This was just really, really well done. I'll get into my nitpick, I promise. So, Willie goes off. He's basically fired by the Collins family. And what you have happen pretty much is almost what happens in 211. The only difference is, now, Mark told me this. They filmed this at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. I love the cemetery. It looks creepy. It's eerie. I love how they go down the stairs. It's sort of like you're going down into hell. I love the atmosphere of this movie. This movie, it screams fall, but at the same time, you could watch it where you want to know a great fall movie. It's House of Dark Shadows. House of Dark Shadows is a great fall movie. If you were looking for a fall movie, House of Dark Shadows has got you covered. Night of Dark Shadows too, to a degree, even though there's some nice looking, scenery with trees being green. It feels like a bit of a fall movie to me. So, but with House of Dark Shadows, you have a fall atmosphere, the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. Willie goes down in there. He pulls on the lion's mouth, and boom, he opens it up. That there's this chained coffin, and he feels, hey, I'm going to have my money. I'm going to have my fortune. We know what happens. He opens the coffin, and there is the hand of Barnabas Collins that chokes the light that is choking him. And, a lot of this movie, really, what they're using is, the storyline is Barnabas is going to court Maggie Evans because she is the spitting image of Josette Dupre, or Josette Collins, if you will. Now, here's the interesting tidbit, too, I've noticed. Josette, they don't call her Josette Collins in this movie. They call her Josette Dupre. It's because she never got married, I don't think, in the movie. Where in the series, she had an affair with Jeremiah. She, because of Angelique's spell. And that's another change, too, that they make for this movie, where Josette, they just don't get married because something went wrong and Barnabas got cursed. Now, there's a line in this movie that me and Mark were talking about in our Dark Shadows movies review. We did a review of all three films in one video. We were discussing them, and I said, the hugest difference with Barnabas in this to me is because a lot of the characteristics are the same from the series, but he says something that is so excuse me, that is so defining in this movie. He says, when they put this curse on me, he doesn't say her, he doesn't say Angelique, he doesn't say a name, he says they, like it's a group, like they put this curse on me, whoever they were. Now, we don't know who they were. They could be anybody or any group of people. And I love the video me and Mark did together because we both gave different opinions. And, to me, is there a wrong answer to this? No. And there's no right answer either because they never followed up on this. And I'll get into that too. So they were going off of that Maggie was, spitting image of Josette, the reincarnation of Josette in Barnabas's mind. In this, however, he doesn't kidnap her right away. He more courts her. He's being... Dr. Julia Hoffman discovers he is the vampire in this movie. A little different than the way she did in the series. In the way of the series, remember, Dr. Julia Hoffman in the series was originally Dr. Hoffman. They were going to make him a man. They referred to him as a man. But later, Dr. Hoffman is changed to Dr. Julia Hoffman, and thank God, because we got Grace in all the play of the character. They got Grace in all the play of the character. So Dr. Hoffman is introduced as a doctor, and when you meet her, but to the family, she isn't introduced as a doctor in the series. She's introduced as a historian doing a book. And in the series, they sort of mix the two. Yes, they introduce her as a doctor, but she's taking a sabbatical from the practice and doing a history of the family. And, that's where Barnabas comes into play, where they can talk. So they're sort of, again, borrowing from the series a bit. And again, Maggie looking like Josette. Now, does he eventually take her and kidnap her? Yes, when they figure out that he's the vampire, long after he bites Carolyn, Professor Stokes is really, there's a lot. Here's the thing. People say, who's the hero of this movie? There's a lot of them. Really, before I'd put Jeff Clark, front and forward, I'd put Professor Stokes first. Jeff is more the number two, and right behind and right with Jeff, to me, the MVP of this movie is Willie Loomis. Say what you want about Willie in this movie, he sort of does turn on Barnabas because he feels what Barnabas is doing is wrong. He doesn't agree with it. So, and again, those were things in the series done as well. He didn't necessarily agree with what Barnabas was doing. Now, he more willingly went along with it in the series than he did in the movie, because with the series, he would gradually each day argue, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Well, in the frame of a 2-hour film, you really can't do that. You can only do it so much. So it's not done as much in the movie, is what I'll say, but it is there. And I love vampire Carolyn. Carolyn as a vampire was scary and creepy. I wouldn't have minded if they would have had just a full-on woman vampire in this movie. If they would have just turned it on its ear and made a vampire woman. To me, when I look at vampires, who was the better vampire, Carolyn or Angelique? I'd put them tied, because Angelique in the series was a good vampire, but I love Carolyn vampire in the House of Dark Shadows movie, after she's turned and bit, obviously. And the reason Barnabas bites her is because she's going to go to England in the summer. He can't have that happen. Now, he doesn't kill, when he kills her is when him and Willie are having a conversation, and that's when Barnabas says, right before she sort of storms in, he says, "They put this curse on me." And that's when she comes in. Now, there's a lot of great scenes in this movie. Again, it's well shot, well written, well directed. So the ending of this movie really is, they're standing at in a basement, in a chapel, in a sense, what you might want to call a chapel, I guess, God. And Jeff Clark is trying to save him. And I love the interaction between Fred and Barnabas and Roger Davis, Fred and Roger Davis, Jeff Clark. And he commands him to come down there. And once he's down there, every wedding needs a witness, and you will be witness to this one. What a line by Fred. And again, I like this movie a lot. Is it my favorite vampire movie of all time? No. Vampire Hunter D. Bloodlust is. House of Dark Shadows is a good vampire movie. Yeah, anybody will tell you it's the best. It's the best vampire movie not made by Hammer, really. It looks like a Hammer movie almost. It's shot in the grain of a Hammer film, but Hammer did not make this movie, and thank God they didn't. It's not a knock against them. It's just, you can tell the difference, though, between what Hammer did and what they did with this, because of the sounds, the shot locations, just everything they did to make this movie look good and feel like a Dark Shadows movie to the fans. And that's what it was in its core, a Dark Shadows film. Now, let me get into the nitpicks. Jonathan Fred did not love doing this movie, and that's well documented. He even said it was Brigadoon. And basically, Fred, him and Dan Curtis's friendship basically was over after this, because Dan Curtis said, "Hey, what would it take for you to come back to do a sequel?" And Fred deliberately asked for way, way more money than what they could afford, because he didn't want to do another one. He didn't like doing this one. Do I blame him? No. Number two, do I put that into the equation when I do my review of this movie? No, because that was Fred's feeling of this film, but I do get why he felt that way. He had played this character on television. And do I think that was just his feeling? No, I think there was much more than maybe we'll ever even really know. And maybe we'll find out more in the Jonathan Fred documentary. That's my hope. About, what were his overall reasons, not just his underlying reasons. We know that. His overall reasoning, was it just, I get, he didn't want typecast as Barnabas. There was that too in this. Now, my biggest nitpick of this movie is the fact that it's not its own story, because a lot of the grain of what they're taking of the story is from the series. The fact that Maggie does look like Josette. The fact that, look, if you go watch the story where Maggie Evans gets kidnapped and then you watch this movie, you will see a lot of the grain in the movie from the series into the movie. And that's what I'll say, that's why I love Night of Dark Shadows better. Night of Dark Shadows is more of its own movie. House of Dark Shadows isn't, in a way. Now, do I take away a lot of points for that? No. What I more take away points from, well, partially. What I more take away the points from is that, yes, it's a good movie, but in the same sense of, yes, it's not its own story, and it just, once you watch the series and then you watch this, you go, you sort of are wishing they would have done a lot more differently than what they had. Not the way they shot it, but the way they told this story. That's what it feels you leaving with, at least for me. I give this movie a solid 7. It's really a fun watch. It's a good watch to watch. Old Man Barnabas' makeup effect is fun to watch, and it's really well shot and done. Look, I like this movie. And I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Again, shout out to Mark who requested this, because we could not find my old review of this movie on my channel. So big shout out to him. I hope he gets a chance to watch this. You guys have a great day, and take care.